I never imagined I'd be sharing my personal life on Reddit, but here I am, desperate for advice and maybe just some understanding. I'm Lily, 29F, a high school art teacher, and I've been married to Marcus, 32M, for 3 years. We dated for 2 years before getting married, and initially, everything seemed perfect. I met Marcus through a dating app back in 2018. I had just moved to the city for my teaching job and was feeling pretty lonely. My previous relationship had ended badly, my ex had cheated on me with a coworker, and I wasn't really looking for anything serious. Marcus's profile stood out because it was genuinely funny without trying too hard. He had this dorky picture of himself at a Renaissance fair, dressed as a knight and pretending to slay a dragon. Our first date was at this tiny coffee shop downtown. He was even more charming in person, and what was supposed to be a quick coffee turned into a 6-hour conversation. We talked about everything: our jobs, our dreams, our families. He told me about losing his parents in a car accident when he was 16, and how his sister Diana, 39F, had put her life on hold to raise him. I remember feeling touched by their story and impressed by Diana's sacrifice. Marcus works as an accountant at one of the big firms downtown. He's brilliant with numbers and genuinely loves his job, which I always found endearing. We bought our house 2 years ago, a cozy 3-bedroom in the suburbs with a small backyard where I started a vegetable garden. I'm an art teacher at the local high school, and having summers off gave me time to really make our house feel like a home. The first year of our marriage was amazing. We had our routines: Sunday morning farmers market trips, Wednesday night board games with friends, monthly dinner parties where I'd cook new recipes and Marcus would pretend they were all delicious, even the time I completely messed up a curry and it was basically inedible. We were that disgustingly happy couple that our friends both loved and rolled their eyes at. Diana was always around, but in the beginning, it didn't seem too bad. She'd come over for dinner once a week, and while she could be a bit intense about Marcus, I tried to be understanding. After all, she'd sacrificed her own plans of going to graduate school to raise him after their parents died. She worked as a marketing executive and seemed to have her life together. Looking back, there were red flags I chose to ignore. Like how Diana would always bring up Marcus's ex-girlfriends and talk about why those relationships hadn't worked out. Or how she'd make subtle comments about my teaching career, suggesting that Marcus needed someone more ambitious. She'd also randomly show up at our house, usually when Marcus was home alone, and spend hours reminiscing about their childhood while barely acknowledging my presence when I got home. The real problem started when Diana lost her job last year. She claimed her company was downsizing, but I later learned through a mutual acquaintance that she'd been fired for creating a hostile work environment. Apparently, she'd made life impossible for any female coworker who got too friendly with her male colleagues. This should have been a warning sign, but Marcus was devastated for her and insisted we needed to help. Without consulting me, Marcus offered Diana our spare bedroom temporarily until she found a new job. I wasn't thrilled, but I understood the impulse to help family. I thought maybe this would be a chance for Diana and me to finally bond. I even set up the guest room with fresh linens and bought her favorite flowers to make her feel welcome. That was 8 months ago, and everything has gone downhill since then. Diana has made exactly zero effort to find employment. Instead, she's completely taken over our house. She rearranged our kitchen without asking, claiming it was more efficient. She threw out my collection of houseplants because she claimed they were attracting bugs. These were plants I'd been nurturing for years, including a peace lily my late grandmother had given me. She started doing Marcus's laundry separately from mine, making comments about how some people don't know how to properly care for nice clothes. She took over grocery shopping, filling our fridge with all of Marcus's childhood favorites while ignoring my dietary restrictions. I'm lactose intolerant, but she keeps serving dairy-heavy meals and acts offended when I can't eat them. The worst part is how she's been methodically pushing me out of my own marriage. She insists on sitting between us during movie nights, usually picking films from their childhood that are full of inside jokes I'm not part of. She monopolizes all our weekend plans with family activities where I'm clearly an outsider. Last month, she planned a surprise weekend trip for Marcus's birthday and didn't even tell me about it until the day before they left. Marcus seems completely blind to all of this. Whenever I try to discuss it with him, he defends her, saying I'm being too sensitive and that she's family. He reminds me of everything she sacrificed for him and how we need to support her during this difficult time. He doesn't see how she smirks when he takes her side, or how she's slowly creating distance between us. Last week, things came to a head when I discovered that Diana had been going through my personal belongings. I keep a journal, something my therapist recommended years ago for managing anxiety, and I found it had been moved from its hiding spot in my bedside table. Certain pages were dog-eared, pages where I had written about my frustrations with the living situation and Diana's behavior. She then used this information to tell Marcus that I was ungrateful and trying to come between siblings. She twisted my private thoughts and feelings, making it seem like I was plotting against their relationship. Instead of being angry at this massive invasion of privacy, Marcus suggested that maybe I should try harder to make Diana feel welcome, since she's clearly feeling insecure about her place in our family. He even suggested I apologize to her for writing those things. I lost it. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. I told Marcus that his sister was a manipulative person who had no intention of ever moving out, and that he needed to choose between having a wife or letting his sister control his life. He told me I was being unreasonable and that I needed to understand that his sister would always be part of his life. So I packed a bag and left. I'm staying with my college roommate Amy, 30F, right now, trying to figure out my next steps. Marcus has been calling and texting constantly, but all his messages focus on how hurt Diana is and how I need to come home and make things right. Not once has he acknowledged how I might be feeling or shown any understanding of why I left. I love Marcus, but I can't live like this anymore. Am I wrong for wanting my husband to prioritize our marriage over his sister's need to control every aspect of his life? Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and messages. Reading your responses helped me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling this way. A lot has happened since my last post, and I needed time to process everything before updating. After staying with Amy for a few days, I decided to return home to have a serious conversation with Marcus. Amy helped me draft a list of reasonable boundaries that needed to be set if our marriage was going to work. These included a firm timeline for Diana to find a job and move out, respect for our privacy and personal space, and designated private time for just Marcus and me. What I found when I got home was worse than anything I could have imagined. Diana had moved into our bedroom, claiming she was keeping Marcus company while I was gone. She had taken down all our wedding photos, including the beautiful canvas print from our first dance that my mom had given us, and replaced them with old family photos of her and Marcus. Even my clothes had been moved to the guest room closet. The house looked completely different. My art supplies, which I usually kept in the spare room for my weekend projects, had been boxed up and moved to the garage because Diana needed more space. The kitchen had been reorganized again, and I noticed she'd thrown out the special tea collection I'd been building since college. Even the fridge magnets from our travels together were gone, replaced with old photos of Marcus and Diana as kids. When I confronted Marcus about all this, his response left me cold. He said that maybe it was for the best if I stayed away longer, as Diana was concerned about my negative influence on him. He revealed that Diana had shown him more entries from my journal, which I hadn't been able to find when I packed my bag, and convinced him I was trying to isolate him from his family. He actually suggested that our marriage had been a mistake because I clearly didn't understand the importance of family. I spent the next few hours going through our home, collecting important documents and personal items. Diana followed me around the whole time, making snide comments about how she always knew I would abandon her brother just like all the other girls who couldn't handle their special sibling bond. She kept reminding me how she had raised him and knew what was best for him. That comment sparked my curiosity, and I did something I should have done years ago. I reached out to Marcus's ex-girlfriends through social media. His college girlfriend, Rachel, responded almost immediately. Her story was eerily similar to mine. She and Marcus had dated for 3 years in college, and things were great until Diana lost her job and moved in with them temporarily. The same patterns emerged, Diana taking over their space, undermining their relationship, and Marcus always taking her side. Rachel eventually left after Diana accused her of stealing family heirlooms, which Diana had actually hidden herself. I also heard from Bethany, who dated Marcus for a year right before me. She warned me that Diana had started spreading rumors about her mental health after their breakup, telling mutual friends that Bethany was unstable and had threatened to harm herself when Marcus ended things. The truth was that Bethany had ended it after Diana installed cameras in their apartment for security without discussing it with her. I've contacted a divorce lawyer and started the process of legally separating our assets. Thankfully, the house is in my name as I made the down payment with my inheritance from my grandmother. I've had the locks changed and sent Marcus official notice through my lawyer that he and Diana need to move out within 30 days. Amy has been amazing through all of this. She's helped me set up security cameras around the house, the irony isn't lost on me, and is staying with me until Marcus and Diana move out. My brother Alex, 34M, has also been checking in daily and even hired a security service to drive by the house regularly after we found out Diana had been telling neighbors I was having mental health issues and had become dangerous. The hardest part has been going to work and acting normal while all this is happening. My students can tell something's wrong, but I'm trying to keep my personal life separate from my teaching. I'm thankful for summer break starting soon. I'll need that time to figure out my next steps. Update 2: The situation has evolved in ways I never expected. Marcus and Diana finally moved out, but not without creating more chaos. The day they were supposed to leave, Diana tried to take several of my personal belongings, claiming they were gifts she had given to Marcus. This included my grandmother's antique china set, which had been in my family for generations, and even some of my original artwork from college. I had to involve the police to recover my belongings. When the officers arrived, Diana put on quite a show, crying about how I was tearing apart their family and stealing her brother's inheritance. She even tried to convince them that some of my family photos were actually pictures of her relatives. Thankfully, I had documentation for most of my valuable items, and the officers were surprisingly understanding about the situation. Marcus stood by silently during all of this, only speaking up to ask if I was happy now that I had embarrassed his sister. It was like watching a stranger wearing my husband's face. This man who once spent 3 hours helping me hang my students' artwork for an exhibition couldn't even look me in the eye as his sister tried to steal my family heirlooms. Since moving out, Marcus has reached out several times about reconciliation. He seems to be having moments of clarity now that he's living in a small apartment with Diana. He admitted that maybe Diana's presence in our home had been a bit overwhelming and suggested we try marriage counseling. He mentioned that sharing a small space with his sister isn't what he expected, especially since she still hasn't started looking for work and expects him to support her financially. However, any hope of reconciliation was crushed when I discovered Diana's smear campaign. She created multiple fake social media accounts to spread vicious rumors about me. She contacted my colleagues at school, claiming I had mental health issues and had been emotionally abusive to Marcus. She even reached out to parents of my students, suggesting I was unstable and shouldn't be trusted around children. Some of our mutual friends actually believed her stories. People I'd known for years started treating me differently, avoiding me at social gatherings or making excuses when I tried to make plans. It was only when Diana got sloppy and accidentally used her real email to create one of the fake accounts that people started realizing the truth. The final straw came when Diana showed up at my school during class hours. She burst into the front office, demanding to speak to me about what I'd done to her family. She was carrying a folder that she claimed contained evidence of my abuse. When the office staff refused to interrupt my class, she started screaming about how I was poisoning her brother against her and destroying their family legacy. The school had to call security to remove her, and I had to explain the whole situation to my principal. By some miracle, he was incredibly understanding. It turned out his own sister had gone through something similar with her ex-husband's mother. The school has banned Diana from the premises and implemented extra security measures, just in case. Through all of this, Marcus's only response was to text me that I should have just talked to Diana when she came to the school, saying she was just emotional and didn't mean any harm. That's when I knew for certain that our marriage was truly over. Update 3: Life has started settling into a new rhythm, though not without some unexpected twists. The divorce is proceeding, and I've moved to a smaller house in a different neighborhood. I didn't tell anyone my new address except for my closest friends and family, but Marcus still showed up last week with flowers and a letter. I found out later that Diana had hired a private investigator to track me down. She claimed it was because she was worried about my mental state and wanted to make sure I wasn't planning to harm her brother. The investigator actually reached out to apologize after realizing the true situation. Marcus's letter was full of realizations that came too late. He wrote about finally seeing his sister's manipulation for what it is, about how living with her has opened his eyes to her controlling behavior. He mentioned that she's now claiming to be too traumatized by this whole situation to work and needs his support indefinitely. He's paying for her therapy, which she uses to talk about how I ruined their lives, and covering all her expenses while she heals. But it's too late for apologies or realizations. The trust is completely broken, and I've learned too much about who Marcus really is. A man who would stand by while his sister invaded my privacy, stole my belongings, and tried to destroy my career isn't someone I can ever trust again. I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I've started teaching art classes at a local community center on weekends, which has been surprisingly healing. Creating art with people who just want to learn and express themselves has reminded me why I fell in love with teaching in the first place. My real friends have stuck by me, and I've made new ones through the community center. Amy still comes over regularly for wine and bad movies, and my brother checks in almost daily. I've even started dating again, though very casually and with much better boundaries. The legal system has been both a help and a frustration. The restraining order against Diana is in place, but enforcing it has been challenging. She still finds ways to monitor my life through mutual acquaintances, but I'm learning to care less about her actions. I've stopped reading Marcus's messages and blocked Diana's new social media accounts. Their drama feels increasingly distant, like a movie I watched rather than a life I lived. Some days are harder than others, but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. To those who asked about legal action regarding Diana's harassment, my lawyer advised documenting everything but avoiding escalation unless absolutely necessary. For now, I'm choosing to focus on moving forward rather than fighting past battles. The best revenge, as they say, is living well.